Hello there, this is Mark Morgan, and I'm going to talk to you briefly today about how to take and capture stop motion animation and time-lapse photography. In the old days, you used to need a fancy computer, video rendering software, all sorts of cameras that could use interpolometers, etc. That's all changed. All you need today is a $2 app on an iPad or an iPhone called iMotion HD. That happens to be my favorite. There are quite a few. iMotion HD, I think, is $1.99. And some simple props. In this case, I'm going to use my master's program sustenance, caffeine, and candy. Maybe some of you can relate to that. And just as an example, but all you really need is an imagination and some creativity. So this is how this works. I'm going to place a couple of simple objects in front of what will become our camera, or the iPad will function as the camera. I'm going to click New Movie in iMotion HD, and then I'm going to set my slider for how often I want it to take images. In this case, I'm going to set it for let's set it for 5 seconds between frames. Keeping in mind that what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply move these objects a little bit between each frame. And of course, the farther you move them between each frame, the faster the perceived motion will be. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is, instead of holding my phone here to videotape this, I'm going to actually capture the actual iPad screen so you can see it in action. Okay? Okay, so I'm now doing a direct iPad screen capture using QuickTime and AirPlay on my Mac. Ask me about that if you're curious how to do that. So I'm in iMotion HD. I'm going to click on my iPad screen. I'm going to click New Movie. No, I don't want to rate it right now. Rate your app right now. I'm going to click Start again. And let's see if we can get it to focus on here a little bit better. There we go. And I'm going to click Start. Every 5 seconds, it'll take a photo. Okay, complete with sound effects. I'm just going to move these a little bit. Get out of the way. And because my iPad is being held still in its little, I've got it in a little holder here, the only motion that will be perceived are my objects. So as I'm doing this quickie little one here of my candy chasing my caffeine, maybe some of you can relate to that, imagine some other more creative uses here. You could either use students. I made one where they were sitting on imaginary cars on the ground, and they'd move a foot or so between shots, and then you play it back and it looks like they're driving around in little invisible cars. Or maybe you want to capture a science project over time. Or maybe you just want to set up your time lapse to take a photo every few seconds while the student paints or creates an art project. Or maybe a writing assignment. Focus it on the paper, tape the paper down as they write, and then use it to quickly document the whole process. Drop that into a Pages or ebook on your iPad, which is also really easy to save with video even. And you've got a really cool capture of an interesting project. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this here. Clicking stop again, and boom, just that quickly, without any fancy rendering software, I've got a fun little animation. Now, how do I get a hold of this into a usable video format? It's really simple. And by the way, you can change the frame rate here, but I'm just going to click the export button on the lower right, and you can choose where to send it. I'm just going to have it go to my photo library. It's exporting to video, and boom. So now that you see how easy iMotion HD is to use, let's take a look at 3 quickie ideas I came up with, just to give some examples of some creative ways you could put this to use. So I'm going to take this same concept that I just demonstrated in a really simple form. I'm going to set the iPad on the porch of a classroom, point it at the clouds, take a shot every few seconds, over about 10 minutes, and play it back. What you get is a really interesting weather study. Next, isn't that cool? Next, I took a heat lamp, went out and picked a weedy flower, and I shined the hot lamp on it and watched it wilt. And it's just an interesting process. The ants survived. You can see ants. On this one, I put a metal plate on a hot plate, melted ice, and watch the movement you could never perceive in real time. But in QuickTime, the plate actually flexes. So what you've got here is an example of something that can only be fully observed in a time-lapse situation. And these are the kinds of things you want to look for. Okay, so now that you've seen how easy this process is for capturing either stop-motion animation or time-lapse sequences, what can you do with it? Because of the versatility of this, because we've dropped this video that it rendered right into our camera roll on the iPad, you can drop that video into all sorts of other apps. And one of my favorites is an ebook creation app called Book Creator. Now, I'm not going to go into detail here, but I just want to give you an example of how easy this is. You can now drop that into Book Creator, make a little documentation of it, complete with embedded video. And where does that end up? Here's where it ends up. That's then exported right into iBooks, which is iOS devices ebook reader. And look where it shows up, right alongside regular books. Here's The Hobbit, and then right over here is this little quickie example I made. So let's click on that. It opens up. We've got turnable pages, and I just wrote on there, time-lapse studies of natural phenomenon. And this is just our little quickie example, but imagine that weather study, or imagine documenting a blooming flower, or maybe you run an iPad and you let it run for a week and you watch a plant grow in a way that you could never observe any other way. Now here's where it gets exciting though. Some of you might say, well, I like printed materials, I like printed books. Well, I like them too, but here's something you absolutely cannot do in a printed book. You've turned this page and you get to this video and you just poke it right in the book and off it goes. Not only that, but you could add subsequent videos of any size on the page or multiple videos on a same page and add to your project. That's pretty exciting stuff. And maybe most exciting of all is the ability to distribute this now. You don't have to burn DVDs. You don't have to print off a bunch of pages. All you have to do, now that it's in ebook form, is send that ebook file to anybody who has an Apple device or an iOS device with the free iBooks ebook reader. They install it and boom, just that quickly and easily, they can share that project right alongside their student from anywhere in the world at no cost to you, the student, or to them. So I find this just really exciting and fun. So I hope you'll give it a shot. iMotion HD, download it for $2. I think you'll be up and running within a few minutes, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So again, this is Mark Morgan signing off, and I appreciate you listening. Hopefully I'll see you next time.